Just to say, as a person who has on many times fundraised for the IWA, and as a person who, through my radio work over 20 years before I came in here, did significant work for the IWA and given them support and publicity, I am deeply disappointed and quite distraught over the moves of the IWA. And just to get right into the questions, I go to the end of your presentation, which I thank you for. You said that the Irish Wheelchair Association has a 60-year track record of ensuring our services meet the wants and needs of our members, and we will continue to adopt and innovate to ensure that this remains true into the future. Can I ask you, if that is the case, why you did not consult your 2,000 plus members? My understanding of what you do is that you are the advocates for service users. So why did you not, number one, consult those 2,000 members? And number two, why did you not consult with your staff, considering you said this has been talked about for 2 years? We'll take that question first.
Yes, so just to make a correction, Deputy Murphy, if I may, Irish Wheelchair Association has 20,000 members, not 2,000 members. So it's an important clarification, I suppose.
Okay, fine.
Irish Wheelchair Association constantly consults with its members in terms of what they want around all of our services and everything that our organisation does. Our board is made up almost entirely of our members, and our agenda and our advocacy agenda are always driven by our members. I've expressed the disappointment of the board and the management of IWA in coming to this decision. It has not been an easy decision. It has taken 2 years. Ultimately, the organisation has a legal obligation to everybody who uses the building, and we cannot guarantee the safety of the building into the future. We have made extensive representations to source the funding, and the funding was not available. The service is not ceasing, the service is changing, and the service is moving to a new model of service into the future. I fully understand that this is very disappointing and very upsetting for the people who are regular visitors to Cuisle and have made very, very many happy members there, but I will bring it back to the fact that there are serious issues with this building, and I would challenge anybody who would make any other decision in this situation. I would not want to be sitting before this committee in a year's time explaining the outcome of a fire or an electrical accident.
Fair point, but one would wonder why you've brought this situation about the dangers of the building into the arena now. Because certainly, as far as I'm concerned, as a public rep, and in Dáil Éireann since 2016, and I checked my records, there was no representation, there was no letter, there was no phone call. I brought Minister Finnean McGrath to Roscommon in 2017. It was one of the first ministerial visits I brought to the county, and we brought him to Dunamon, where I met Ms Coleman and members of staff. There was never any mention of a need for replacing any part of the building. Minister McGrath stood outside with me and the manager at the time and said, it's a fantastic facility. I'm always here to assist and help. Now, you got almost 39.4 million funding recently, for your last budget. Can I ask you how much, if you have the figure, you got in voluntary contributions? In other words, your fundraisers up and down the country, many of them in County Roscommon, might I add, in terms of what they raised for you, if you have that figure?
I can put it out for you in a second, Deputy Murphy. What I will say to you is that every year Irish Wheelchair Association generates about 7 million of its own funding through a variety of activities, so through fundraising, through our retail shops, through other grant sources and through our social enterprises. Our fundraising value, I just can't think of it off the top of my head. I do have the financial statements here, so I can pull it out for you. It's not a huge amount of money. It's in the region of about €1 million, and it's spread right across all of our activities. As I've mentioned, in 2018, Irish Wheelchair Association put 1.9 million of our own funding to supporting continuation of services that are funded by the HSE. There's a serious deficits issue in the funding from the HSE. The funding from the HSE is also managed under the service arrangement process, so each service has a specific amount and specific service level allocated to it. It is not within our gift to change that up without consulting with the HSE, and in any case, all of our services are underfunded, so if we were to take money from another service, that service would be in jeopardy.
Okay. So in relation to fundraising, I know because I was helping out in some of those, you've had massive fundraising throughout County Roscommon, and particularly in that ordinary Dunamon area where the centre is. And I have figures here 1,600 raised at bag packing, 5,500 on a 6K walk. Did you get any, or can you inform me, did you get any substantial donations, private donations from people in that region?
I'm not aware that we did, Tony, did we?
One of the things, and I suppose one of the beauties of the service in Cuisle is that, and I've said this on record before, the staff are very much part of and developed Cuisle to what it is. We took the building in 1997. We've developed that extensively over that period of time, over the 22 years. And most of that was funded by grants and also by local fundraising. So now the staff in the last year, and probably some of the figures that you're referring to there, would have been going towards the matching funding, for instance, for the Leader Grant. So we qualified for 275% of 216,000 in the Leader Grant, which meant we had to raise 50,000 for that, as an example. 25,000 of that was secured through the Athlone Municipal District, and the remainder then was fundraised locally. And that fund is still there. That wasn't spent. The Leader Grant wasn't spent either, because we would have been undoing the work of the Leader Grant with the electrical works. The Leader Grant was for upgrading and taking away the institutional look of Cuisle and try and make it more like a hotel, so it would be more appealing to the general public and make it more comfortable for our members. That would involve, we'll say, like you come into a hotel and you have a team running through that, and you have the corridors, the bedrooms, the en-suites, the reception area, all of that enhancing that look, carpets, wallpaper, all of that. The problem is that you come along then to do the electrical and fire safety works, you'd be chasing through the wallpaper and the carpets and all of that. So we asked Leader on a number of occasions, and they've been very Roscommon partnership. They've worked very well with us, and that fund still sits there on hold. It would have been, I suppose, negligent of us to spend that money and undo a lot of it later on. So the fundraising that was raised there was put towards that. And there's a whole. I wouldn't be even familiar with all the series of smaller fundraisings. And people, individual staff members run individual fundraising events. Some people make donations. All of that.
Now, very quickly, I didn't get an answer, as far as I can recall, in relation as to why you informed your staff in Dunamon so lately about this decision. You have about 2,300 workers in total, would that be right?
Over 2,500.
Workers, yeah, well, that's close enough. And you have 20,000 members. But there is no question about it. The way you've treated the staff in Dunamon after all they do and the service, they go way beyond the call of duty. So I think it's a very fair question to ask you is why, if you had these problems for 2 years, you didn't meet with the staff, you didn't meet with local politicians, and why did you treat your staff so shabbily in the end by not informing them until the very last of this decision? Very last minute.
Mr. Cunningham, the decision, it's not accurate to say staff weren't aware. I attended 3 general staff meetings myself, where my purpose for being there was to update the staff team on the issues, but also on the efforts that were being made to secure the funding. It's not my job to inform staff that a place might be closing or we mightn't get the funding. It damages the business, it damages morale. We tried to be as upbeat as we could in our efforts all through that period of time. I think it was three staff meetings I could recall where we looked at that. So staff were aware, I suppose, they're aware of the bigger issue. I suppose as far as I often went was, if we don't get the money, I don't know what's going to happen here. But it's not good, and that we're working away on them. That's the information we gave. Why, at this point in time, I've said this at other meetings, I was at the meeting, it was devastating. There's no right time. There isn't, no matter whether it's the 1st of January or the 1st of December. It was one of the toughest things I was ever involved in, I have to say. The time of year, I suppose it has come after we were sure there was no funding coming. As we say, Cuisle usually closes for most of December, January and into February at that time of year. And a month's notice was what was agreed, and but also obviously to pay people the additional notice period as required. There is no right time, I know that. I know it has been devastating for staff, but it was the end of the road. From the board, as Rosemary said, have the legal responsibility for everyone's safety in the building, and we cannot guarantee that. And I suppose over the 2 years, that's why so many board meetings this was discussed at. and our efforts to secure the funding. But also I go back to Rosemary's point about the financial situation in the organisation. Like even our fundraising efforts around the country were to maintain essential services, and that was covered here a number of weeks ago at the meeting. You know, we do not have the money to do these works. We do not own the building, it's leased. The lease will be out in a few years' time. And accessibility has improved in the community. I am at a loss what to say to staff. I've met a lot of staff on a one-to-one or a group basis. There is no words for it. We looked at, as Rosemary said, the services looking at transitioning into the community. The first place we looked at was Roscommon in terms of hotels, so that from a redeployment option that it would create more opportunities for the staff locally. That wasn't possible in Roscommon. The level of accessibility, the number of rooms and the interest in partnering with us wasn't there. So the next place we're looking at is the likes of Ballinasloe, which is a commutable distance, and we looked at the redeployment options for people there. We were originally talking about 2 hotels, one in Galway City and one in Ballinasloe, but in order to create more sustainable jobs for redeployment, we went for a longer full-year effect in Ballinasloe to start with. And there were the redeployment opportunities we put out there for people, for our colleagues. And as Rosemary said, the uptake on that is very, very low. We know you can always do things differently. I think everyone would say that. There is no right way of doing it. There's no right. I don't know. I'm at a loss really in one way. But
thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Deputy Murphy. Now.